I was reorganizing my grandmother's filing cabinet when my brother texted, "Heads up, we cleaned out the RESP. Needed it more than you do. Don't wait up." I read it twice, then a third time. Then I set my phone face down on her oak desk, took a slow breath, and smiled. Because I had moved the money 4 days ago. Let me back up. My grandmother, we call her Nana, raised my brother and me after our parents split when I was 9 and my brother was 14. She took us into her house in Kelowna without hesitation, without complaint, without ever once making us feel like a burden. She had a small orchard on the edge of the property, about 4 acres of apple and cherry trees, and she ran it the way she ran everything quietly, steadily, and better than anyone gave her credit for. When I was 12, Nana sat me down at the kitchen table and explained what a registered education savings plan was. She had opened one for me the year she took us in. She had been contributing every month since. She showed me the account statements, explained the government grants, walked me through compound interest with a pencil and the back of a grocery receipt. She told me that no matter what happened, that money was for my education and my future, nobody else's. She opened one for my brother too. Earlier, he used his for a 2-year business program at Okanagan College. Fair enough. That was what it was for. Mine. She kept contributing too after I started university. I studied accounting at UBC. Nana insisted on keeping the account in both our names, hers and mine, because she was the subscriber and I was the beneficiary, and she trusted me to manage the withdrawals responsibly. I did. I pulled exactly what I needed for tuition and books, kept receipts, reported everything correctly. By the time I was in my final year, there was still a significant amount sitting in the account, close to $38,000, because Nana had kept contributing even when I told her she didn't have to. My brother, Marcus, had been watching that balance for a while. Marcus is 31. He's charming in the way that people who never learned consequences tend to be: easy, smile, big ideas. A way of making you feel like you're the one being unreasonable when you ask a simple question. After college, he moved to Vancouver, started and folded 2 businesses, accumulated credit card debt he never talked about directly, but referenced constantly in the form of vague stress and requests to borrow money. He moved back to Kelowna 2 years ago. He was living in Nana's spare room. I noticed small things when I came home for visits. Marcus would be on the phone in the orchard when he thought no one was watching, talking in a low, tight voice. He had a new laptop, he said, was for a consulting project. He asked Nana once, casually, over dinner, whether the RESP had any flexibility, whether it could be used for things other than education. Nana said she didn't think so. He changed the subject. I watched his face while he did it. That was in March. In April, I came home for Easter. On the Saturday morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard Marcus and Nana in the living room. Their voices were low, but the house is small and the walls are thin, and I was not making noise on purpose. I heard Marcus say something about how the RESP would just expire if it wasn't used properly. I heard him say the word transfer. I heard Nana say she wasn't sure that was how it worked. I took my coffee upstairs and called my university's student financial services office from my old bedroom. I asked them about RESP rules, specifically about what happens when a subscriber adds someone else as an account holder, or whether withdrawals could be made without the beneficiary's knowledge. The woman I spoke to was thorough and patient. She explained exactly how the account structure worked, what documentation would be required for any changes, and what protections existed. Then I called the financial institution directly and asked some careful questions about our specific account. I asked whether a change to account access would require consent from both parties. The answers were not entirely reassuring. There were some administrative pathways, particularly given the joint subscriber structure, that could be exploited by someone who was persuasive and patient and willing to walk into a branch in person. My brother is persuasive. He is patient when he wants to be, and he was living 8 minutes from the nearest branch. I did not say anything to Marcus. I did not say anything to Nana, because Nana would have confronted him directly and Marcus would have denied everything and then been more careful, and I would have lost my window. I spent the next 3 days doing exactly what I should have done when I first graduated. I contacted the financial institution, explained that I wanted to consolidate the remaining RESP funds now that my program was complete, provided my transcripts and proof of enrollment completion, and initiated a full withdrawal into my personal account. I had a brief conversation with a tax advisor about the tax implications of the withdrawal. There's a portion that comes back as income, and I wanted to handle it correctly. I paid what I owed. I moved the rest. I did not tell Marcus. I did not tell anyone. 2 weeks later, I was back in Kelowna for a long weekend. On the Friday evening, Marcus said he was going to visit a friend in Penticton. He took an overnight bag. He seemed unusually relaxed, the way someone looks when they've already made a decision and are just waiting to execute it. On Saturday morning, Nana and I were in the orchard doing some early season pruning. My phone buzzed. I looked down. Heads up, we cleaned out the RESP. Needed it more than you do. Don't wait up. I read it twice, then a third time. Then I set my phone face down on the old fence post she uses as a work surface, took a slow breath through my nose, and felt something settle in my chest that I hadn't expected. Not anger, exactly. More like clarity. Nana looked at me. She has the most perceptive eyes of anyone I've ever known. Everything okay? Give me a few minutes, I said. I walked to the far end of the orchard, stood between two old cherry trees that Nana planted the year she bought this property, and called Marcus. He picked up on the second ring. There was background noise, music, voices. He sounded relaxed. Hey, he said. I got your text. Yeah. A pause. Look, I know it's not ideal, but I really needed the liquidity right now. I've been carrying a lot of... Marcus, I said. The account has been empty for 2 weeks. Silence. Not a short silence. Not a surprised exhale or a quick recovery. A long, specific silence that told me exactly how much planning had gone into what he thought he was doing. What? He finally said. I withdrew the funds when I finished my program, which is what they were for, which is what Nana opened that account for, 12 years ago. For me, more silence. Then, in a different register, flatter, harder. You can't just... I can, I said. And I did. And everything was done correctly and above board, and I have documentation for all of it. I needed that money. There it was. Not an apology, not an explanation, just the assumption that what he needed had always, obviously, been more important than what the money was actually for. I know you think you did, I said. I'm going back to help Nana with the pruning now. I hung up. He drove back to Kelowna that afternoon. I know because Nana mentioned his truck was in the driveway when she went inside for lunch. He didn't come out to the orchard. He didn't knock on the door of the room I was staying in. He didn't say anything to me for the rest of the weekend. On Sunday evening, I sat down with Nana at her kitchen table. I made tea. I told her what had happened not just that weekend, but everything. The conversation I'd overheard at Easter. The questions he'd asked the bank, what I'd done and why. I showed her the documentation. She listened without interrupting, which is how she listens to everything important. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I'm going to need to talk to my lawyer. I nodded. I should have seen it, she said. Not with guilt, exactly. With the particular tiredness of someone who has been extending good faith to the same person for a long time and is finally putting it down. He's good at making people not see it, I said. That's not your fault. What happened in the weeks after that was not dramatic in the way that would make for a satisfying story. Real life rarely is. There were no shouting matches, no public confrontations, no moment where everything came out in one clean explosion. There was a conversation between Nana and her lawyer about revising her estate documents. There was a conversation between Nana and Marcus, which she had without me present, and which she described afterward only as difficult but necessary. Marcus moved out of the spare room in June. He's renting a place on the other side of the city now. He hasn't texted me since the orchard call. I've thought about that a lot. About whether I miss him, whether I should feel worse about the distance, whether I did the right thing by not warning him, by not giving him a chance to come clean before I acted. I've landed, after a lot of honest thinking, in this place. I protected something that was not mine to give away. Nana spent 12 years contributing to that account because she believed in my future. The right thing to do with her belief was not to let someone walk off with it. There's something I've learned about people who take things that aren't theirs. They almost always believe, on some level, that the taking is justified. Marcus didn't think he was stealing. He thought he was correcting an imbalance, redistributing something that fate had unfairly allocated. He's always believed that. When we were kids and he was in trouble at school, it was never quite his fault. When his businesses failed, the market was wrong. When his debt accumulated, the system was rigged. The story always positioned him as someone owed something. The problem with that story is that it requires other people to pay for it. Nana called me last week. The cherry blossoms are coming early this year, she said. She wanted to know if I'd come home to help with the spring pruning. I told her I'd be there. Some of the most important things in my life have been decided standing between those trees. The conversations that actually mattered. The moments where things became clear. There's something about the specific quiet of an orchard in the early morning, when the light is new and the work is real and you can feel exactly what's worth keeping. I'll be there with my pruning shears and my rubber boots and my grandmother, who is 81 years old and still shows up every morning, who taught me to read a financial statement at the same kitchen table where she taught me to make proper pie crust, who has never once in my memory taken anything that wasn't hers. That's who I was shaped by. That's who I'm still learning from. And Marcus? He'll find his own way to whatever lesson is waiting for him. I hope he does, genuinely. But I'm done subsidizing the education.